They say the most dangerous place to hide is in the light. But tonight, the light was my enemy. My name is Araya, and in exactly 3 minutes, I was supposed to be dead. 2 black sedans were hunting me through the neon-soaked veins of the city, their tires screaming against the wet asphalt. I was clutching a small USB drive to my chest, a digital ghost that held enough secrets to burn an empire to the ground. I ducked behind a rusted dumpster, my lungs burning, as a sweeping searchlight cut through the rain just inches from my face. I needed a way out. Now. That's when I saw it. A sleek black SUV idling at the end of the alley. Its engine was a low, predatory hum. A beast waiting in the shadows. I didn't check the plates. I didn't look at the driver. I just lunged for the back door. It was unlocked. A miracle. Or a trap. I scrambled inside, pressing my body against the cold leather floor mats, smelling the sharp scent of expensive cologne and something else. Something metallic. Gun oil. I held my breath until my vision blurred. 1 second. 5 seconds. 10. The footsteps of my hunters faded into the rhythmic drumming of the rain. I let out a jagged, trembling breath, thinking I had finally made it, thinking I was safe. But then, a voice drifted from the front seat, deep, smooth, and chillingly calm. "You're bleeding on my Italian leather, Aria. That's a very expensive mistake." My heart stopped. My blood turned to ice. I slowly looked up at the rearview mirror and met a pair of sharp, obsidian eyes. It wasn't a stranger. It was Adrian. The man the underworld calls the Ghost. The very man I was trying to destroy. He didn't look back, and he just watched me through the glass and whispered, "You have exactly 5 seconds to tell me why I shouldn't hand you back to the men outside. 5, 4. I had escaped the wolves, only to crawl into the den of the devil himself. 3, 2, wait." My voice cracked, raw from the rain and the sheer terror of the countdown. I forced myself up from the floorboards, my wet clothes clinging to me like a cold shroud. Adrian hadn't moved. He sat perfectly still, his gloved hands resting casually on the steering wheel. Yet he radiated a level of danger that made the men outside look like children playing with fire. "I have the drive," I whispered, my heart hammering against my ribs. "The one from the vault. The one you've been killing for." In the rear-view mirror, I saw one of his eyebrows arch. He finally shifted, turning his head just enough for the dim dashboard light to catch the sharp, lethal angle of his jaw. Many people have died claiming to have that drive, Aria. Most of them are currently at the bottom of the river. Why should you be any different? "Because I know who your client really is," I countered, trying to find a spark of my old journalistic courage. "I know you work for Julian Varga, and I know that drive contains the one thing Varga would kill you to keep secret. The offshore accounts he used to fund the hit on your father." The silence that followed was suffocating. I could hear the rhythmic tink-tink-tink of the cooling engine and the distant muffled wail of sirens. Adrian's gaze didn't waver. He was calculating, weighing my life against the cold, hard facts of his own past. Suddenly, the locks clicked. Not open, but deeper into place. Adrian shifted the car into drive and floored it. The SUV roared to life, tires gripping the wet pavement as we surged out of the alley, leaving the silhouettes of my pursuers in a spray of gray mist. And we drove in a tense, heavy silence for 20 minutes, leaving the neon glow of the city for the dark, winding roads of the northern cliffs. Eventually, we pulled up to a monolithic structure of glass and black stone, his fortress. "Out," he commanded. He didn't help me. He watched as I stumbled out into the biting mountain air. Inside, the mansion was a temple of minimalist luxury, cold marble, sharp edges, and a haunting lack of color. It felt less like a home and more like a high-tech cage. He led me into a massive study, the walls lined with monitors displaying every corner of the city. Adrian went straight to a crystal decanter, pouring himself a drink. He looked at me then, really looked at me, taking in my bruised face, my torn waitress uniform, and the white-knuckled grip I had on my bag. "You're a journalist, Arya. No, you seek the truth," he said, swirling the amber liquid. "I'm a cleaner. I bury it. Usually that makes us enemies. But Julian Varga made a mistake. He thought he could hire me to find that drive and then retire me. He broke the one rule of our world: never lie to the man who hides your bodies." He walked toward me, his footsteps silent on the marble. He stopped just inches away. He was so close I could smell the wood smoke on his suit. "Varga is my client," he whispered, his obsidian eyes locking onto mine. "But he is no longer my priority. You want to take him down for the truth. I want to take him down for the insult. That makes us partners." He walked over to a heavy mahogany desk and pulled out a single sheet of paper, a contract, but not one for money. "Here's how this works," Adrian said, his voice dropping to a chilling whisper. "You stay here under my shadow. You give me the decryption key for that drive. In return, I keep you breathing. We dismantle Varga's empire piece by piece. But the moment you try to leak a word of this to your press friends, the moment you think about running..." He leaned in, his breath cold against my ear. "I'll remind you why they call me the ghost. You won't just be dead, Arya. You'll be erased. No record of your birth, no memory of your name, just gone." He held out a sleek, black fountain pen. I looked at the pen, then at the man who was both my savior and my captor. I was trapped in a mansion on a cliff with a monster, planning to take down a devil. I had played my only card, and now the game had truly begun. I took the pen. My hand was shaking, but my gaze was steady. "In We Take Him Down," I said, "every last brick." Adrian's fingers brushed mine as I took the pen, a brief, electric contact that sent a shiver down my spine. A dark, predatory smile touched his lips. "Welcome to the dark side, Arya. Try not to lose your soul before sunrise." The mansion was silent, save for the hum of the servers and the distant whistle of the wind against the glass. For 3 days, I had been Adrian's shadow. We worked in a rhythmic, deadly silence, stripping away Julian Varga's layers of protection, like skin from a bone. I provided the journalistic intuition. Adrian provided the brute digital force. But tonight the silence felt different. It felt heavy. Adrian had gone out to handle a logistical problem. A phrase I had learned meant someone was likely never going to be seen again. He had left me in the study with a strict warning: stay within the decrypted files. Do not go looking for ghosts you aren't ready to face. He should have known better. Curiosity is a journalist's greatest strength and my most dangerous flaw. I sat in his high-backed leather chair, the glow of the monitors reflecting in my tired eyes. We had finally cracked the 3rd level of encryption on the drive. Files were pouring in: bank statements, wire transfers, audio logs. But there was a hidden partition, a folder labeled with a simple, nondescript date: October 14th, 2016. My heart skipped a beat. That was the night my father died. The official report said it was a hit and run, a drunk driver who was never found. My father had been a small-time whistleblower, someone who knew too much but had no power. I had spent my entire career trying to find his killer, only to end up in the car of a man like Adrian. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the mouse. Adrian's warning echoed in my mind, but the need for the truth was a fire I couldn't extinguish. I clicked. The folder opened to a single high-resolution video file and a scanned PDF. My breath hitched. I opened the PDF first. It was a contract, a disposal order. It was signed by Julian Varga, but the recipient's name wasn't a name at all. It was a call sign. The ghost. No, I whispered, the word dying in my throat. I opened the video file. The footage was grainy, taken from a security camera in a dark parking garage, the same garage where my father took his last breath. I watched, paralyzed, as a younger, leaner version of Adrian stepped out of the shadows. He didn't look like a monster then. He looked like a machine. I watched as he approached my father. There was no struggle, just a conversation, a cold exchange of words, and then the accident. Except it wasn't an accident. Adrian hadn't pulled the trigger. He had staged the scene. Nay, he had made sure no one would ever find the truth. He hadn't just cleaned the crime. He had cleaned my father's existence. The USB drive I had been using to take down Varga wasn't just a weapon. It was a confession. You weren't supposed to find that. The voice was like a gunshot in the quiet room. I spun around, my chair screeching against the marble. Adrian was standing in the doorway. He looked tired, his coat splattered with rain, but his eyes, they were colder than I had ever seen them. You killed him, I choked out, tears finally blurring my vision. You didn't just hide the truth. You were the one who took him away from me. Adrian didn't deny it. He didn't flinch. He walked into the room, his footsteps heavy and deliberate. I was a different man 10 years ago, Arya. I was a weapon for hire. Varga gave an order, and I executed it. That was the life I chose. The life you chose cost me everything, I screamed, standing up, my hands shaking so hard I had to grip the desk. All this time you've been helping me? You weren't helping me take down Varga. You were using me to find the last piece of evidence that tied you to the murder. Adrian stopped a few feet away. The air between us was thick with a decade of secrets and blood. Is that what you think? That I'm protecting myself? He reached into his pocket and pulled out his own burner phone, tossing it onto the desk. Look at the outgoing files, Arya. I didn't wait for you to find that video. I sent it to the district attorney 10 minutes ago, along with every other piece of evidence on that drive. I stared at the phone, then back at him, confused and broken. Why? If you sent it, then you'll go to prison. You'll lose everything. I lost everything the night I fulfilled that contract, Adrian said, his voice cracking for the first time. I didn't know your father was a good man. I didn't know he had a daughter who would grow up to be as stubborn and brave as he was. I've spent 10 years trying to outrun that night. But when you crawled into my car, I realized I couldn't run anymore. He took a step closer, his obsidian eyes filled with a strange, dark grief. I didn't bring you here to hide the truth, Arya. I brought you here so you could be the one to finish me. The drive is decrypted. The evidence is out. Varga is done. And so am I. He reached into his waistband and pulled out his sidearm, laying it on the desk between us. The cold metal glinted under the fluorescent lights. You wanted justice for your father? Adrian whispered. Here it is. You can call the police and wait for them to take me. or you can take the justice you've been searching for right now. I won't stop you. I looked at the gun. I looked at the man who had destroyed my life and then saved it. My world was spinning. The hero was the villain. The villain was a martyr. And the truth was more painful than the lie ever was. Outside, the sound of distant sirens began to grow louder, echoing through the mountain pass. The police were coming. But the real judgment was happening right here, in this room. The sirens were no longer a distant hum. They were a screaming reality, their blue and red lights dancing against the cold glass of the mansion. Adrian stood there, unmoving, his gaze fixed on me with a terrifying acceptance. The gun lay on the desk, a heavy silver bridge between my past and an uncertain future. "Pick it up, Arya," he whispered, his voice steady, even as the world around us crumbled. "End the cycle. For your father. For yourself." My fingers brushed the cold steel. It felt heavier than it looked. 10 years of grief. 10 years of searching for a face to blame. And here he was. The ghost. The man who had held me while I was terrified in his car. And the man who had shattered my family. "You think this is what he would want?" I choked out, my voice trembling. "For me to become a cleaner like you? To let Varga win by turning me into a monster?" Adrian took a step closer, the barrel of the gun now inches from his chest. "Varga has already lost. The files are public. The empire is falling. This isn't about him. It's about us." Downstairs, the sound of a door being breached echoed through the marble halls. "Police! Hands in the air!" I looked at Adrian. For the first time, I didn't see a Mafia enigma or a lethal shadow. I saw a man who had spent a decade in a prison of his own making. If I pulled the trigger, I'd be free of the hate, but I'd be bound to the blood. If I let him live, I'd have to live with the fact that the man I had started to trust was the one who began my nightmare. The door to the study burst open. "Drop the weapon," a voice roared. I didn't look at the officers. I looked into Adrian's obsidian eyes. Nay, I saw a flicker of hope. Or maybe it was a plea for an end. I made my choice. I didn't pick up the gun. I picked up the USB drive, the physical proof of everything that had happened in the last 72 hours. I stepped back, away from Adrian, away from the gun, and raised my hands. "He's the one you want," I said, my voice cold and distant, even as my heart felt like it was breaking. "He's the ghost, and he has a confession to make." As the officers swarmed the room, pinning Adrian to the floor, he didn't fight. He didn't even look away from me. As they led him out in cuffs, he paused at the doorway, the blue light of the sirens reflecting in his eyes one last time. "You were always too good for this world, Arya," he whispered. "Don't let them change that." Then he was gone. Adrian was right. The truth burned everything down. Julian Varga is behind bars, and the Vane Empire is a memory. Adrian is gone, disappeared into the legal system, or perhaps back into the shadows he came from. Some people call me a hero for bringing down the syndicate. Others call me a fool for not taking my revenge when I had the chance. But every time I see a black SUV idling in the rain or smell the faint scent of wood smoke and expensive cologne, my heart stops for a second. Because I realized something that morning. Adrian didn't just give me the truth. He gave me a choice. And as I look at the note he left behind, I realize the game isn't over. It's just changed. The note reads, "I'm still watching, Arya. The ghost never truly leaves. Was he a monster who found a soul? Or a predator who found a new way to haunt me? Maybe I'll never know. What would you have done? Would you have pulled the trigger or let him go? Tell me in the comments below. And if you want to see what was inside the safe deposit box, hit that subscribe button for part 5.